If you wanted to start a company after World War II, Japan was the last place you'd choose. Cities flattened to dust. Families starving. Hope itself a luxury. Yet, inside a bombed-out Tokyo department store, surrounded by shattered glass and ashes, two engineers dared to dream. Masaru Ibuka, Akio Morita. They had lost everything. Their jobs, their country, their certainty, but not their imagination. They wanted to create something that didn't destroy lives, but enriched them. Something that could bring joy through technology, not pain through war. What began as a desperate attempt to survive would grow into one of the most powerful and innovative companies on Earth. A name that would echo across music, movies, gaming, and technology. But Sony's journey was anything but peaceful. Behind every success lay failure. Behind every partnership, betrayal. From being stabbed in the back by Nintendo to allegedly being hacked by North Korea, Sony's story isn't just about invention. It's about resilience, revenge, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. So today, we're diving deep into how two men, with a few hundred yen and an impossible dream, built a $100 billion empire. This is the insane story of Sony. Born in 1921, Akio Morita was destined to take over his family's 300-year-old sake empire. Since childhood, he sat in board meetings, watching generations run the business. But Akio's heart? It didn't beat for barrels of sake. It beat for machines, radios, phonographs, circuits. Against all tradition, his father made a rare choice. He let Akio pursue engineering, a decision that would save his life. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, millions of men were sent to the battlefield. But Akio, thanks to his technical skills, he was sent to design weapons for the Navy. And there, in the midst of war, he met another engineer, a man with the same restless curiosity, Masaru Ibuka. The two bonded instantly, united by a shared hatred for how technology was being twisted, for destruction. Both dreamed of something different. A future where innovation could rebuild Japan, not destroy it. Then came the unthinkable. The atomic bombs fell. Their world collapsed. Their lab was shut down. Their jobs gone. Japan reduced to rubble. But from the ashes, hope flickered. Masaru opened a tiny radio repair shop in Tokyo. He fixed broken radios so people could hear the outside world again. And somehow, in the middle of this devastation, his little workshop was featured in a magazine. One man, reading that magazine, smiled. Akio Morita. He recognized the name. His old friend, Masaru Ibuka. He wrote to him. And soon, the two reunited, not as soldiers, but as dreamers. Together, they made a decision to build something new. Something that would make Japan proud again. 1946. With a humble investment of 190,000 yen from Akio's father, they founded the Tokyo Telecommunications Engineering Corporation. The company that, one day, would become Sony. Their first products? Disasters. A rice cooker that burned every single grain. A heating blanket that could electrocute you. But Masaru refused to stop. Every failure, he said, was just a rehearsal for success. And eventually, they did succeed. They built a tape recorder, their first product that actually worked. That little tape recorder became the first step toward a global revolution. But the real turning point came in 1952. Akio discovered something called the transistor, a tiny device that could replace bulky vacuum tubes. He traveled to America, negotiated tirelessly, and secured the license to bring transistor technology to Japan. But during that trip, something changed him forever. He saw New York, towering skyscrapers. A rebuilt Germany, thriving again. And then, he noticed something small. A paper umbrella on his dessert. It read, "Made in Japan." People laughed at it, because in those days, made in Japan meant cheap, inferior. That moment burned into Akio's heart. From that day forward, he swore to make "Made in Japan" a mark of excellence. With transistor technology in hand, Ibuka and Morita were ready for a new beginning. They needed a name, something short, international, youthful. After days of searching, they found it. 2 words, sonus, Latin for sound, and sunny, a slang word for a bright young boy. Combined, they became one name, S-O-N-Y. But their new identity didn't mean instant success. Their first transistor radios, a disaster. 95% of the parts failed. Factories were silent. Bills piled up. Sony was hanging by a thread. But they didn't stop. After countless sleepless nights, they released the TR-55, Japan's first transistor radio. It was small, portable, and most importantly, it worked. Still, Masaru wanted more. He dreamed of something even smaller, something people could carry anywhere. The result? The TR-63, the world's first true pocket radio. And here's the genius part. Sony made custom shirts for their salesmen, with oversized pockets, so the radio would fit perfectly during demonstrations. Marketing brilliance. Instant success. By the early 1960s, Sony had gone global, the first Japanese company ever listed on the US stock exchange. While Akio focused on conquering the West, Masaru became obsessed with color. He wanted a color television that didn't just show images, he wanted it to feel real. But innovation is never easy. Their first prototypes? Blurry, fragile, expensive, failure after failure. But Masaru refused to quit. And finally, after years of pain, Sony unveiled the Trinitron, a color TV so sharp, so vibrant, so alive, it stunned the world. It sold millions, it won an Emmy Award, and it changed television forever. Made in Japan was no longer a joke. It was a promise, a mark of perfection. Sony hadn't just rebuilt a company, they'd rebuilt an entire nation's reputation. But success can be dangerous, and the next innovation would nearly destroy them. It's the 1970s. No Netflix, no YouTube, no streaming. If you missed your favorite TV show, too bad. But then, Sony changed everything. In 1975, they launched Betamax, the world's first video cassette recorder. For the first time ever, you could record your shows, pause time itself, and re-watch whenever you wanted. It was revolutionary. It was the future. Until the rival arrived, VHS. And while Betamax had superior quality, VHS was cheaper. It could record longer, and the market made its choice. Convenience beat perfection. Betamax died. Sony lost millions. But Akio Morita? He refused to surrender. If our next idea fails, he told his team, I'll resign. That idea was the Walkman. People thought he'd lost his mind. Who would wear headphones in public? Who'd buy a cassette player that couldn't even record? But when the Sony Walkman hit shelves in 1979, everything changed. For the first time, music became personal, portable, intimate. You could take your soundtrack anywhere, and the world went crazy. Over 385 million Walkmans sold. Sony didn't just sell a product, they reshaped culture. But they didn't stop there. Next came a new revolution, the compact disc. Partnering with Philips, Sony created the CD, a crystal-clear, digital miracle that replaced vinyl and cassette tapes. It became the global standard. Sony made billions, and with that success, they made a bold move, buying CBS Records in 1988 for a staggering $2 billion. Now, Sony owned both the music and the machines that played it. They controlled sound itself. But even that wasn't enough, because next, Sony set its sights on a new world, a digital battlefield, a revolution of pixels and power. Sony wanted to conquer video games. In the early 90s, Sony and Nintendo, two giants, shook hands to build the future. A CD-based gaming console, a revolution in the making. But just before launch, Nintendo betrayed them, publicly, brutally, announcing a new deal with Sony's old partner Philips, a slap in the face, a betrayal broadcast to the world. But Sony didn't bow. They fought back. They took their broken dream and rebuilt it into something legendary, the PlayStation. Released in 1994, it used CDs, not cartridges, giving developers endless space for bigger, better worlds. The result? It crushed Nintendo. Over 100 million consoles sold, nearly a billion games played. Sony had won the console wars, and they were just getting started. Then came the PlayStation 2, the best-selling console in history. Over 150 million units. But it wasn't just a gaming device. It was a cultural weapon, a gateway to worlds like God of War, Gran Turismo, and Ratchet & Clank. Sony proved that owning the stories mattered just as much as owning the technology. Meanwhile, on another battlefield, Hollywood, in 1989, Sony bought Columbia Pictures, forming Sony Pictures Entertainment. And when Marvel was drowning in the late 90s, Sony swooped in, buying the rights to Spider-Man for just $7 million. That one move turned into one of the most profitable franchises ever. Nearly $9 billion from Spider-Man alone. Ironically, Marvel once offered Sony every character, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, for just $25 million. Sony passed. But then, 2014, Sony faced a new kind of enemy. Not a rival company, but a ghost in the wires. Hackers calling themselves the Guardians of Peace infiltrated Sony's systems, leaking personal data, private emails, and unreleased films. The FBI pointed fingers at North Korea after Sony released The Interview, a comedy mocking Kim Jong-un. Was it really North Korea? No one knows for sure. But one thing's certain, the damage was real. And yet, Sony survived, just like it always had. Today, Sony stands tall, a $100 billion empire with its hands in everything: electronics, gaming, film, music, insurance, robotics, even electric cars. From a burnt-out office in post-war Tokyo to global domination, Sony's story is living proof that failure doesn't kill dreams. Giving up does. And that is the insane, cinematic story of Sony, a story born from fire, built on risk, and fueled by imagination. From rice cookers to PlayStations, from Walkmans to Spider-Man, Sony didn't just follow technology, they defined it. If you enjoyed this story and want more epic histories of the world's most powerful empires, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And tell me in the comments, which Sony invention changed your life? Because this wasn't just the story of a company, it was the story of a revolution.